guys, in today's unbox and swatch, the unboxing has been done for us, so that really leaves the swatching. But today we're going to be taking a look at the Superior Watercolor 40 Watercolor Palette. If you're interested in seeing how this works, keep watching. So I saw an advertisement for the most unique watercolor palette I have ever seen on Instagram. A couple of months ago, I was getting ready to go to ALAAC. I saw it as an Instagram ad and I knew I had to try it because it just seemed so innovative compared to all the other stuff I've tried. And unfortunately, I cannot find that ad. And while I thought I had a screenshot of it, it appears I do not. But I was able to find it on Amazon. There's quite a few different variations available. And see if I can actually all right, so this is what we're looking at. The Diane watercolor paint set, 42 colors, travel pocket watercolor kit with round water brush for field and field sketch outdoor painting. And I paid way more than $16.97. I paid kind of closer to around $40. So obviously I got had. And if I was just patient, I would have been able to get a much better deal on it. I also thought this thing was going to be much larger. I mean, obviously the water brush should have been the 2-scale Clue, but it seems a lot smaller than what I feel the picture kind of advertises. And of course it makes really big promises. And it also seems to have like a palette or a grip here, whereas on mine, there is a little sponge. And although the Amazon listing has swatches, color-coded swatches, in fact, we're going to be doing our own swatches today, and we're going to be doing it on Blick Premier cotton rag paper. So let's go ahead and start exploring. So this is meant for field use. It's meant to be a compact way to carry a lot of watercolor. Initially, I thought it was going to be like Peerless watercolors where it's a dye-based watercolor on a sheet, but it seems like they are actually very, very tiny, like slivers of pans on plastic cards. So it kind of reminds me of like a paint swatch. If you guys have ever done any kind of home renovation or helped with any kind of home renovation, you'd know what I was talking about. It kind of reminds me of that, but with actual paint. And it seems like some of the paints up at the top are going to be harder to access. And I can't get it to quite go all the way up. So I do think space is going to be a factor. And I do think we are going to lose some accessibility. So I have a trip coming up and I wanted to do this unbox and swatch before I left for the trip because I actually want to bring this with me and give it a try in an actual field setting. So as you guys can see, there are swatches down here at the bottom, and it's also organized by what tier they're on. Way at the bottom, there are a couple of mixing pans. It'd be interesting to try and just mix using that. It has a removable brush, and I only realized this was removable because I read the Amazon reviews. So it has a removable brush or sponge that you can use to clean off your water brush. And then it comes with one of these Chinese style water brushes. And I have been told that not every water brush will fit in this, but that the Sakura Koi water brushes will also fit in this. And I think probably the Kuretake Brush 2.0 and Niji water brushes would also fit. Why don't we go ahead and try? Because they have basically the same kind of body. So it seems like, I think this is a Pentel one. Even that will fit, you just can't put it in sideways. So it's not quite as much of an issue as perhaps some people were concerned it would be. But it seems like a nifty tool. A nifty toy. I'm interested in seeing how these watercolors handle, but what I was really the most interested in is what I figured is if I don't like the paints they include, I can pop them out and kind of do like a half or a quarter fill with tube paint, something like that. So even if I don't like these colors, I think the system is really neat. And it's actually one of the, I've tried a lot of pocket sets, a lot of palette travel sets, and this one actually feels fairly sturdy in the hand. My only concern is these are kind of prone to swinging however they want to swing. So if you do have it all set up the way you want it, and a gust of wind kind of knocks you off balance, it's not hard for them to all go clicking back into place. Another concern I have is once these are wet, you know, they're going to transfer, they're going to smear. So that's something we're going to find out together. On the back, there are some instructions, mostly just for using the water brush. So let's go ahead and fill this water brush and get swatching. So today we're going to be swatching on Blick Premier Cotton Rag watercolor paper. I find that cotton rag watercolor papers tend to give watercolors kind of their best opportunity to really shine. So want to give them the best chance I can. I have here a pigment brush pen. I'm going to use this to do some lines on this paper so we can test for opacity. Now we are testing all 42 colors. So space is definitely a limiting factor. So I'm pretty much going to start with doing mass tone swatches, and then if I have room, I'll go back and do gradiated washes. So I'm gonna let this cure for a few minutes, and then I'll be back. All right, I've got my water brush, I've got my travel palette, and this is really designed to be held, well, I don't know, maybe like this? You could do it like that, but then these are going to, because they won't go all the way up, right? So they're still gonna kind of occlude your painting area. I mean, maybe they assume you're painting with like a plein air easel, or maybe you've got this on your lap instead of trying to do everything with just two hands. But it's still a better solution than a lot of the solutions I've seen. So I'm still into it. We're gonna start with 42 number 3. So there's only 3 colors on here: white, a yellow, and then it looks like a greeny yellow, but it's really a darker, like a golden yellow. And I was warned through Amazon that the color swatches are not at all indicative of the colors. And I'm gonna demonstrate how one would clean one's brush off on that sponge. But considering I'm swatching all 42 colors, I'm gonna end up switching to a paper towel. And that's not bad coverage, actually. I'm also not going to pre-wet these because since they're travel watercolors and they're in kind of a special palette already, I'm just gonna assume that they work, they activate quickly. So I went and swatched the white, and it's actually got pretty good coverage. All right, I went ahead and I cleaned my brush on a piece of paper towel since you wouldn't be able to see it on the sponge anyway. These seem fairly quick to activate, and the color does seem somewhat saturated, a little bit opaque. We'll see though when it dries. Okay, so this is me cleaning my brush out on the sponge. It doesn't really seem, I mean, when you're cleaning a water brush out, and this is always my problem with water brushes, is you are expelling so much water in order to clean the brush. You better carry, you know, a water bottle or something. Yeah, not really doing the job. I'm gonna remove that and clean that. What I've seen other people do is they remove this Velcro and they just use that as like a little top mixing palette, which considering the sponge doesn't seem to be very effective, might be the best course of action. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and swatch the rest of these in time lapse. So I caught the sponge while it was still wet and went ahead and rinsed it off. I was able to get most of the yellow off. I assume if you leave it in, it can be staining, and there is some staining to it, but most of it came out pretty easily. So I'm gonna let that air dry elsewhere, and then I'm gonna resume swatching. Okay, so I finished swatching. I am gonna let them dry. I do have a little bit of room. I was thinking of maybe doing like a rainbow swatch, like a blended swatch, to kind of give you guys an idea of how these handle, since I do have a space limitation. I did kind of discover several problems with this though as I was going. So I want to talk about the pros and the cons with you guys. So the pros are they're very pigmented, very fast to activate, which is great for field work. You don't want to have to wait a long time. If you're trying to capture something in the moment, you don't want to have to wait a long time for your watercolors to activate. There's lots of vibrant colors, so these could be really fantastic for crafters and brush letterers because you get a whole array of beautiful colors and they seem very pigmented from the get-go. The cons is the sponge is basically useless as a cleaning option when you, so what I'm probably gonna do is I'm just gonna remove that and then remove the Velcro and use that top area as a mixing space. When you slide the tile shut, the paint gets on the back of the tile above, which I showed you guys while I was doing the swatches, and I have a feeling there's loads of paint on my swatches because they kept sliding as I was doing, there's lots of paint on the back of my tiles as they kept sliding as I was doing my swatches. Tiles aren't really tight enough to stay in place and they're prone to swinging around, which I know you guys saw. It won't open fully, so that actually makes it kind of hard to get at all of the colors, which brings me to my next point where it's really difficult to get to the pans at the top. So one of the solutions to that is super simple. Just don't have that top pan on anything but the top tile. It gets kind of off balance. Maybe when I'm holding it, it won't be a problem, but it gets kind of off balance if you're balancing it on like a table or something, and it can become difficult to use. I felt like it was overpriced through the Instagram ads, so I recommend you buy it on Amazon. It's much more affordably priced there. On there. And there's loads of options from this set to like a 24 color set to pastel sets. So if you are a crafter, if you are a hand letterer and you want your colors quick and easily available, you don't want to mess around with mixing stuff while you're doing blends, this could be a really good solution for you. All right, friends, this has had a chance to dry. I don't see any dramatic color shifting here. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to do a rainbow blend. Ooh, lots of nasty in my brush. A rainbow blend. So we're starting with white. I'll zoom in for you guys so you don't have to see me struggle with this thing, but you can watch the colors blend instead. All right, friends, so these have had a chance to dry. All that's really left, well, there's a couple of things left. I want to do a lift test, and I'm also going to do a mud test just to kind of see how many optical brighteners are in these paints and how prone they are to turning to mud on the paper. So I'm going to do the lift test off camera, check in with you guys, and then we're going to end with the mud test. right, guys, so I just finished the lift test. As you guys can see, most colors will lift with, to some degree, not as much as the Kusakabe watercolors I recently reviewed. So they're certainly not the worst I have taken a look at. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this from the block, and then we're going to get started on making some mud. So rather than use the water brush, which I fear would take forever, I'm just going to use a regular traditional synthetic watercolor brush and a cup of clean water. And I'm just going to mess around with these. We're going to do 3 layers, and the point is to test for lifting, for muddiness, for color migration, things of that nature over those 3 layers. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on layer numero uno. Alright guys, it is time for our second layer. Right now, these colors, they're dry and they're beautiful, they're bright, they're brilliant, they're vivid, which really I think lends this palette to crafters and to hand letterers. However, I found the palette itself to be really tiring to hold after a while. So I'm going to start over here with some of these more neutral colors. We're going to make a little bit of mud, and I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So that layer is dry, and the colors are a lot more vivid than I expected them to be. I know it does start to look a little bit muddy, but that's because I'm layering browns and contrasting colors on top. So now we are doing our third and final mud layer. So I'm going to try to use all the opaque colors and see how well they cover. Okay, so our final layer has dried. I have to say, this has been kind of a roller coaster for me. I have come back and forth regarding these paints. I originally thought I was going to love these paints because the holder for them is actually quite innovative. And then I found that the holder, while innovative, has a lot of design flaws. The plates press too close to one another. There are pans that are just so high up, you can't really access them easily. And then, it ends up making a lot of mess if you try to shut it while it's still dry at all. Still wet at all. I thought these were going to be really cheap, low quality paints. I figured I was going to be replacing the pans. I mean, seriously, look how messy this has already been. Just trying to show you guys. Let me move this over so I can, it's like all over the backs of them. And if you're holding this in the field, you're going to get it all over your hands. So I'm going to open it all the way out try to open it all the way out so it can dry, because any bit covering, even if you only try to use a little portion of the pan, any bit covering ends up causing kind of a problem. But the paints themselves remained vibrant and didn't lift too much, and there didn't seem to be too many optical brighteners. Now I'm still gonna have to put these to the field test and get this palette cleaned up. So what I think is gonna be the real problem is the design of this palette rather than the designs of the paint used in this palette. I figured this was gonna be very similar to the Jerry Q palette I reviewed in the past in terms of paint quality, or the Banyo palette I reviewed, but really they kind of remind me of the Paul Rubens watercolors that I reviewed that I got from Wish. So they're still made in China, but they're a little bit higher quality than say the Banyo set or the, sorry, I'm distracted by trying to get it spread enough that it can air, and I'm gonna have to wash my hands before I do anything with these. But it's more similar in quality to the Paul Rubens set than say the Pabio set or the Banyo set or the Jerry Q set. So I was pleasantly surprised, other than me struggling to get this innovative paint system to work for me. The paints themselves really did impress me, and this seems like it would be a great option for maybe not a younger painter, just given how frustrating this is and how my hand did grow tired. I can imagine somebody with a smaller hand than mine would have a lot of hand fatigue. And it doesn't really balance well, and you have to leave it open to dry. So it doesn't solve every single watercolor problem, but I think this could be a really fun set for like a brush letterer or a crafter, because it packs up really compact. Like if you can leave it out to dry, it packs up really compact. So this was a really interesting set to take a look at, and I look forward to putting it to the field test. I hope you guys found this video to be interesting, helpful, and informative. And if you've tried this set out yourself, either through the one sold on Instagram for way too much money, which is what I got, or the ones sold on Amazon for like half that price, let me know in the comments below what your experiences with this set are. If you have any tips that I may have missed out, if I'm doing something wrong, if there's like a special locking mechanism I've somehow missed, let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you guys. So I look forward to seeing you guys again. I'll share with you guys the fruit of my field test, and I hope you guys have a great day. Bye guys.